A social media warning from a state leader is re-sparking Mississippi's long-running debate over mobile sports betting. 3 Under Side's Courtney Jackson explores the issue and why the divide between the House and Senate positions will likely continue.
Even with the lawmakers out of session, the fight over mobile sports betting is back after the lieutenant governor posted a familiar warning.
Don't do mobile sports betting.
He raises concerns about addiction risk, brick and mortar casinos, and the social and economic cost, adding that the Senate should continue to reject this, quote, harmful legislation.
Everybody who wants to place wagers on their mobile device does it already today. And so to come out with a statement that saying we don't need it is in the most respectful way possible. It's really tone deaf to the reality of what's going on in Mississippi right now.
Representative Trey Lamar views it as a pretty straightforward issue.
Either legalize mobile sports betting and allow our current casino operators to help regulate that environment, or enforce the law as it stands today. And really investigate and go after these folks who are profiting off of Mississippians illegally.
A University of Mississippi professor who studies gambling notes the data they've collected shows how prevalent it's become.
Survey college students at four-year universities in Mississippi. 39% of the college students report having gambled in the past year. Over half of them reported that they were betting online.
Dr. George McClellan notes there are higher rates of addictive gambling behavior tied to online betting. He adds they aren't endorsing any particular legislative position, but he does point out that the risks are there and it's happening, legally or not, because of that.
We need to invest in better data collection and better support networks, because the thing I know that we can't do is we can't stop it.
Lamar doesn't expect the Senate opposition to slow the House in its attempts to try legalizing mobile sports betting. Courtney Jackson, 3 on Your Side.